Sorry. So, as you can probably tell, um, I'm still a little under the weather. I didn't really talk about it on Discord. I haven't mentioned that I've been sick, but um, when when I was visiting my family for my mother's memorial, who passed on Christmas Eve, um, I I was around lots of young children. My sisters um, all have kids, all of them, and all of my sisters were there, and all of my kids' sisters were there, and some of my sisters' kids have their own kids, and their kids were there. So, wide range from 17 all the way down to, I think, 4 is the youngest that was there. Yeah, that sounds about right. So anyway, I knew right off the rip, as soon as I started hanging around with all of the people and all of the kids, that there was a chance that I was going to get sick. So I was taking emergency and I was being very cautious, and I made it all the way home. I could feel that I had kind of gotten a little bit sick, but I beat it. Before I even traveled back home. And even with all the travel on the plane to there and the plane back, um, I, I made it back home, and my roommate is sick. so, so pretty much as soon as I got back, I got sick as well. Tenekoe, welcome in. Great to see you, Kaimatara. Thank you. Happy New Year. I've been sick since I got back. Since the day I got back from visiting my family. But they're all doing good. My sisters are all doing good. They're fantastic humans. Their kids are fantastic humans. I feel so genuinely lucky that my family, my blood family, is a bunch of really cool human beings, actually. A bunch of people I really, really like. What is going on? Discord. I was trying to do one very simple thing. And this is not what I needed you to do right now. And I don't know how to make that go away. I don't even know what to do about that. Anyways, let's go look. Jane, you said you had put some stuff in the Discord. In the general? I should have asked. You probably said. Yeah, there we go. Considering type of discussion we're having on stream. Good. Yeah, when consensus fails, this would be a good one to watch. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so I do intend to pick up where we left off. I don't think that I'm going to do that today. I think that today I would like to just connect with you all a little bit. I don't intend to stream for a very long time. I know I'm late. I know very much, and I'm very sorry. Thank you all so much for your patience. But I am sick. My school semester, one of my school semesters started on Monday. My other schools, 2 of my other classes start on the next Monday. And then I have a month before my 4th class begins. And I barely had any time over the break, because I spent 4 days with my family, over, for my mother's memorial. So I haven't had a lot of time. So, and that's why I don't want to try and dive right into picking up where we left off on the outline and on the conversation about leftist perfectionism and arriving at consensus. I do want to continue that conversation. And Friday, I think that we can just pick right up. I think I'll be ready. But that's the thing. It depends on school. So much depends on me getting everything ready with school. Which I should. I was full in being able to get the course changes made. So the first 2 weeks are still going to be rough. This week, next week, and actually 2 weeks for both semesters. So this week is rough. Next week is going to be very, very rough. And then the week after that is still going to be kind of rough. But then I should get a break. And then that whole week should be kind of easy. And then the next week will be tough. But then the next week will be easy. And then anyway. Anyway, I should be less stressed the next time that we meet, is what I'm trying to say. Have you considered adding masking as a discussion? New Year. I'm glad you could make it. Street Cat Love is here. Fantastic. Wow. Great to see you. Happy New Year, Street Cat Love. Everyone's good. And thank you so much. I just appreciate, I really, really wanted to log in today and spend some time with my friends. Thank you for being here. I just appreciate the heck out of all of you so much. Thank you for the shout out, Matt. Appreciate it. And thank you for being here. You're all amazing human beings. I have considered discussing masking. It's come up several times, Jane. Masking has come up several times. I talk about it sometimes too. When I had a semester, oh gosh, it's been probably 5 or 6 years, more like seven years ago, that I had a class where I was emotionally touched by the class in a very powerful and profound way. And I broke script, so to speak, with my students. And then we talked about me breaking script, right? And what I think it means to be a professor, and what I think it means to uphold certain kinds of standards, and that sometimes right, we shift through these kinds of roles, but in all of those roles we're still always human, and we're still the same moral being, and that moral being actually takes precedence over most of the other. It's the primacy of moral norms as one of the things that we talk about, where moral concerns are actually just more important than anything else, than laws, or what people say on people put on paper, or promises that we've made, or none of the things matter more than doing the morally right thing. Always, right? And that's the primacy of moral norms, and it's that you being a moral being, and if that means that you need to have an emotional connection with other beings, and that takes precedence over any kind of roles or any kind of masks that you believe are appropriate for those kinds of roles, right? And this is a very Jungian kind of thing that often I bring Jung into the classroom, and then we talk about whatever that thing is. I forgot it again. The last time we were talking about Jungian psychology, I couldn't remember what it was called. It's not the facade. It's the thing. The shell that others see that's not our real self. I can't remember what the fucking thing is called. Anyways, it doesn't matter. But yeah, it does come up. And I have. It's not part of the core curriculum, but like a lot of topics, they're so close to the things that are on the core syllabus that they get talked about. Like gaslighting is something that I only officially added to my syllabus, I think 4 or 5 semesters ago, but I've been talking about gaslighting since the first semester I've taught, because it's an important thing to discuss, and it always manages to come up in the course of an ethics course. Feeling very well on yourself? Oh, I'm sorry to hear that, Kaimatara. I hope you feel better. Not a virus, chronic illness, possibly. Oh, that's right. That you've written about it. I've read about that. The autoimmune stuff is flaring up. That's terrible. I'm sorry that you're not feeling well. I hope you feel better. Meantime, I wrote the first part. Oh, excellent. Of the history of New Zealand, Red Scares article. Some really interesting things in there, like how the father the father of the nuclear physicist Ernest Rutherford, his tutor that inspired him the most, was an avid follower of Kropotkin. Here it is, if anyone is interested. I will definitely click that right now so that I don't lose it. And I will check that out later. Thank you for sharing the link, Kaimatara. Good. Now I'll have that pulled up. COVID masking. Oh, COVID masking. Oh, that comes up all the time. Actually. That's funny that I completely misunderstood you. Completely, and I had a whole ass conversation about it. But COVID masking. Yeah, so that does come up as well. Because there's it's funny, the first semester after COVID, when mandates were first a thing, probably I had I'm trying to think back. I'm trying to remember. Lots of students wrote about that for their application essay. Was the mask mandates or mandates in general, or vaccine mandates? Do we force people to follow certain kinds of protocol, even against their will, even if they object for religious reasons, or if they object for whatever reasons? There's a lot of ethical meat in these kinds of considerations. So right after COVID happened, it was common for my students to be writing about that. And I would say right off the rip, several people wanted to write about it being a gross violation of human rights to force people to, for example, wear masks, or to force people to social distance. And it was hard to treat them seriously, but really, when it comes to certain kinds of grading, there's a switch of giving a shit that you just have to turn off. I need to not give a shit. Just turn that give a shit switch off so that I can do the job. And then I'll turn the switch back on, and then sometimes I'll have a very emotional reaction to the thing that I've graded, but I have to get through it first and grade it impartially, as impartially as possible. Anyway, can't entirely remove your biases from how you understand the world, but I do my best. But yeah, so it was just that first semester, right after COVID, right after everybody came back. I had a few people that were making that argument, but very quickly that argument evaporated. Right? I don't have anybody in my classes who are writing about that it's wrong for governments to mandate vaccines, or it's okay for people to threaten the population with their negligence by not wearing masks, or by not anyway. But it's not officially part of my course, but it's something that inevitably comes up in the discussion boards quite frequently. It's brought up in class quite frequently. Dropping an ND mask at work is a tough subject. Yeah, no, absolutely. I know exactly what you mean. Did I tell you that I entered my best 10 puns in a contest? Guess how many won an award? Please, Matt, tell me how many of your puns won an award in the pun contest. No pun intended. Oh man. I love puns. I love that other people love puns, especially because they're especially not good. Puns are my favorite not good humor. because it really is very clever. You have to be clever to come up with the puns, and a lot of times you have to be clever to get the puns, right? There's this aspect of punning that I find to be just absolutely really fantastic. But also, when it comes to rate, like if we were to do a tier list of humor, it's definitely above miming, right? But I don't know, I love puns. That long story short, I love puns, and I will always laugh at puns. I will always laugh at puns because I love puns. One of them was about German sausage. It was the worst. My roommate laughed at that one. That's good. When you get a virus, you get colonized. That's when you get a virus, you get colonized. It's very true. Most modern day viruses are either directly from settlers or created from the settler society imposed on people. Yeah. Yeah, the indigenous people didn't have, if the North American continent didn't have a problem with viruses. Just, until colonizers showed up. Despite the fact that they were trading too. That's something else. It is not as though the people on the North American continent were entirely isolated and had no contact with the rest of the world, because they did. They traded. They traded with Iceland and with Greenland, with Scotland, with Ireland, all the way past Cuba. We are aware of their very complex water craft and their trade routes and the ways that they were in communication with a whole bunch of other civilizations, right? That it's almost like there were whole civilizations of acknowledged peoples here before colonizers showed up and ruined everything. That as colonial subjects, our external bodies were colonized alongside our internal bodies. Yeah. If we were lucky enough to survive. Yeah, absolutely. The analogy is just really very, very powerful, very poignant. 100%. My partner started a local mask block because it seemed the best thing we could do to start towards free healthcare. It's a really good idea. And I completely agree that we should have never stopped masking. It's something that I think about a lot. I was actually at the store today without a mask, and I saw somebody who was wearing a mask. And the first thing I thought to myself is, I should be wearing a mask too, especially because I'm recovering from being sick. But you just, it's habit. It's years and years and years of having this habit. And when COVID was a thing and I was masking all the time, that was a habit, and it was easy for me to get in the habit. And it was easy for me to maintain the habit. I lived, when I was masking before, I lived in a big city with lots of people, and I was at the store 2 or 3 times a week, and now I go to the store, more like 2 or 3 times a month. So habits are different. I feel like I'm the only masker in my neoliberal paradise. Yeah. And that's, more of us should be. I do completely agree with that. It's something, I actually just put, the bag that I carry around everywhere with me, as soon as I came home, before you had even said something, as soon as I came home, the first thing that I did was put my mask back in the bag so that the next time I'm out and I have forgotten to put my mask on, I have my mask already in the bag and I don't have to worry about it. I'll already have it, and then I don't have to feel bad. I can just put it on. I'm protecting me, not them. Oh no, absolutely. That's one of the primary reasons that I see people masking, and that's it. It's obvious the people that have immunocompromised systems or have certain kinds of conditions that make them more susceptible, because those people never stopped masking, and many of those people were masking before COVID anyways. Leave a handful of disposables in the car door. I tried that. Where I live is too dusty. So even if I'm driving around with my windows up all of the time, just the inside of the vehicle becomes inundated with dust, and everything on the inside of it becomes covered in dust. I tried carrying around masks in a Ziploc bag for a while. I don't remember why I stopped doing that. I think they were molding. I can't remember. It wasn't that they were molding, but when I would put them on, they would smell not right. They weren't right. When I would put them on, as I was breathing, I could tell that what them sitting in the bag had been not good for them, and that was not good for me to be breathing. I don't know how to explain it, but when you breathe something in, and your body goes, "Don't breathe that in. Stop breathing that in." Some need to vent. So I must have gotten some that needed to vent, and I didn't let them vent, so that they weren't good. Fantastic. And that's not a bad idea. I wonder if I can order a pack of order a pack that comes with some that are individually wrapped, and then I can carry that pack around. That would be really kind of cool. And then there would be something that I would feel comfortable handing out too, right? Right, because there's sometimes where I'm like, well, I can. You hear it. You can have this mask, but other people aren't going to want to take my mask. But if I could hand somebody an individually packaged, still sealed in its thing, that would probably work better. I was at home for most of the quarantine, and I've never had a COVID vaccination somehow. Well, if you've never had to get the vaccination, I've been vaccinated several times, but when I was on a college campus, why would I not be vaccinated? I'm in that kind of situation. You are exposed to the virus all the time, and it's something that people kind of don't think about. If you work in a grocery store, you have been exposed to COVID nearly nonstop since it has come out, right? And so that's when we talk about herd immunity, there's a whole lot of complicated factors, and that's one of those kinds of complicated factors. There are some kinds of people, school teachers, for example, who have super immune systems because they're adults who are around a bunch of snotty children all the time who are themselves massive infection vectors, right? And so people who are around massive infection vectors often have strong immune systems because they're constantly having to battle those kinds of things, right? So that their immune systems are accustomed to constant warfare. But when you have people that are sometimes not exposed, and then sometimes exposed, sometimes not exposed, sometimes more exposed, right? And everybody's different too. Some people, if they're exposed for long periods of time, their immune system can't handle it, and they degrade over time, and they will eventually wear down and become sick. Some people, that's not the case, and it's right. So it's complicated. Oh, I didn't read all of this stuff. One thing they don't teach in history class in New England is the Pilgrims showed up after about 2/3 of the indigenous population had already been wiped out. That's true. I missed that earlier. It's a true statement. A good one. I'll be working on the next article called "We Are All Orphans," tying together oppression of nature, patriarchy, and capitalism, using materialism and patriarchality. I don't know what this word means. Patrilocality. Cultural practice where a newly married couple lives with or near the husband's parents. Okay, I gotcha. Okay. To explain why. Okay. Now I understand. I get. Okay. I see what you're doing there. Huh. Why Polynesia is the grandparent of modern socialism, thanks to Tahiti. Diderot was Marx's favorite prose writer, and Kropotkin made it clear that Diderot's writing on Tahiti supplement Bougainville's voyage inspired anarchism. Huh. He wrote about it in the anarchist section of Encyclopedia Britannica. That's really fascinating, Kaimatara. I just learned a whole bunch of stuff today. I'll have to look into that as well, because I'm not actually aware of any of that. The 3M auras we distribute are individually wrapped. That's fantastic. That's awesome. The 3M auras. That's I'll look for something like that. Coming colors on the Bezos site. That's unfortunately a lot of times I do end up defaulting to the Bezos site, despite looking for other alternatives. I was at Walmart today, despite the fact that I hate being there. But I mean, sometimes, especially if you don't have a lot of energy, especially if you don't have a lot of time. I was already late getting home as it was. Could you imagine if I had to stop at 4 or 5 different places to try and pick up the stuff that I needed instead of just the one, right? And that's there's one of the other things that I want to start talking about is how none of us have time. None of us have time for anything. And this is by design, part of the makings. That's, one of those things on the back burner. Lots of back burner stuff. Moderna works. Yeah. I mean, yeah. I can't remember which. Did I get the Pfizer? I have my vaccination card. I can go look. I can't even remember. That's so wild. It used to be a big deal where people cared about what kind of vaccine they got, and I simply just don't even remember at this point. When I got the booster, it was the same one. It was a booster that was complementary to the first one. So, if that, I don't know if that is an indicator. When I got my third booster, I was told that didn't matter at all, right? And I don't know. At that point, I was done trying to do the research on it. I was done trying to be an informed consumer of vaccines. At that point, I was like, it's going to kill me or it's not. But not for the whole year. mRNA is prophylactic for 6 months only. Then it's just a T-cell response. Thanks, Joe Biden, for instructing the CDC for it on guidelines. COVID helped drop the metaphorical mask on that libs have up. That's very true too, Matt. I think I would absolutely agree with that. And that's really the thing that is still baffling to me, is that society is still going on like all of the shit, right? There were so many realizations that people globally had in a response to COVID, and rather than those massive intellectual awakenings turning into anything. It became incorporated into our media and into our art, and it was just a weak, I don't know, it didn't have the effect that I thought. I don't understand why we're still going about society still, right? Why are people still going to their jobs? Why are people still paying their rent? I don't know. Yeah, I would recommend Novavax if you get one again and lasts longer and has a bit less side effects from what I've seen. Okay, I will take that recommendation. In because I've given up on trying to research and be an informed consumer. COVID is worse than it ever was. People just ignore it, and that's something else too, right? It not only is it a devastating illness. I've had COVID. It is a devastating illness. I thought I was going to die. I've been sick with all kinds of stuff, right? And I've been sick. But COVID was something else. It was really hard on me. And it was not a pleasant experience for me when and a lot of people that have it suffer lots of long-term side effects. It's possible that I'm suffering long-term side effects, and I'm just chalking it up to decades of smoking, right, or whatever else. But we're still trying to understand just how bad the COVID. Um, it is really quite astounding. The amount of people that it disables is astounding, right? That's it. Really important to not mince words or to beat about the bush or to, right. It disables people, quite literally, sometimes permanently. Somebody will get COVID, and for the rest of their life. It's not just a statistic, and that's the thing. Again, everything is just so detached from people's understanding when it comes to grappling with these kinds of things. And I tried to do this in the classroom. I tried to make it real, and it's one of the reasons why I make such a big deal about focusing on the discussion boards. This is actually perfect. So one of my students last semester mentioned early in the semester that one of their friends had died, right? And it was just kind of a side note. I was aware because they missed some assignments, and we had some they notified me about it, and it came back up in the semester, and it was about somebody was having an argument, or had made an argument about freedom and about the balance of these kinds of things, of having policies that I can't remember exactly how it was phrased. I can't remember exactly how it was, but the student was basically trying to make the argument that that right that we shouldn't, just because there are some outliers, just because there's a slim chance that this can be the case, doesn't mean that we should augment our whole policy on something. And one of the students' rebuttal to that was, well, that slim chance that you're talking about is literally what killed my best friend just a few months ago. That thing that you're talking about, that's a slim chance that we shouldn't set policy on, is real life for me, though. that's that's me though that you're talking about, right? That's my friend that you are just using as a device to make your argument, right? Rather than recognizing that we're talking about human beings. And that's something that's right. I can't manufacture that kind of thing. I can't come up with hypotheticals or thought experiments or, there's nothing that I can do that's going to be more real than a raw student's response to a moral situation to remind that other student that that's me that you're talking about, that it's not just principles and theories and laws. These are humans, that we're talking about human things. So if the Novavax is even available here, oh, that's cool. Looked it up. Some places have it. Okay. What would one get if they were getting it for the first time? Probably the same, I would guess. But don't take my word for it. I don't know what I'm talking about. As soon as I started to make a recommendation, it was like, I don't know what I'm talking about. 1% isn't slim. That's enough to cripple your local hospital. Right. 1% isn't slim. If we're talking about a 1%, that's excellent point. Right. Yeah. To put that in perspective, a 1% increase in patients would absolutely cripple your local hospital. That does put it in perspective quite well. I don't know what the official disability rate is, but it's well over 1%, is it? mRNA, first dose, plus a protein booster after consulting with your doctor. Yeah, that's true. Talk to your doctor. Speaking of time, the reason why we, as Indigenous people, still respect our ancestors is because we still see them. People see it as far-fetched, but look up at the stars. Do you respect them? Most people do. Do they also realize many of them are dead? Right. Huh. That is interesting. That's a really, there's a whole lot of stuff to unpack there, Kaimatara, actually, too. That analogy translates really quite well. People see it as far-fetched, but look at the stars. Right. And if nothing else, people have a reverence. Right. I don't know that a lot of people, I don't know. Maybe I was about to make some sweeping statements about kinds of people, but I don't know. I don't see people looking up at the stars anymore these days. But I think that people do have a general reverence for the stars, and I think that that's a very good point too. And this is we were just talking about this on the last stream. I believe it was like a month ago. It was the last time I streamed. When I was talking about, we were talking about oh, did I just lose it? No, the fact that that we have mechanized death, we have mechanized the healthcare industry. I was talking about Michel Foucault and the history of sexualization. Right. Right. So it used to be the case that illnesses of all kinds, any kind of sickness or disability, was always something that was in the home and was multi-generational. Right. Most homes for most of human history have mostly been multi-generational. So the way that we thought about sickness and health and disability was very communal, right? And we would invite others into our home to help us make somebody better, right? And that's how we would think about it. And then we went from this way of thinking about health and medicine to an institutionalized kind of medicine, where instead of health and wellness being a part of home life, you leave, you go to the doctor, to the institution, and the institution has all the answers and all the medicine, and those people don't have any idea what they're doing, right? And healing is haven't figured that out, that what they're doing is really kind of more poking around in the dark than many of them would like to admit. That when it comes to health and to some of these things, we really don't have it all figured out by any stretch of the imagination. Welcome in, Dark Gray Dark Gray Otter. Welcome in, Dark Gray Otter. It's great to see you. Good to have you in. 4 weeks post-infection, 8.8 to 45.3 have cognition issues. Wow, that's a big range, but that's still 12 to 40% have mobility issues. 4.7 to 20.7 have independent living issues. Wow. 3.7 to 10.7 have vision issues, long COVID, and new onset disability.
Where are the Marxists here?
Hey, DJ Che, welcome in. Thank you for the raid. I really appreciate it. I hope you're having a great year. Welcome. Happy New Year to you. Good to see you. Oh, yeah. I was reading that. Okay. It's rather cold in here. It's cold everywhere. It's cold where I am in Colorado. It's freezy. Absolutely. I know I've seen you around other places, Dark Ray Otter. So welcome in, comrades. Good to see you. Cause Alzheimer's like plagues in the eyes. Yeah, I'd heard some things about the eyes. In fact, my roommate's mother, she's got long COVID, and it's definitely affected her lungs. That's why I think I mentioned this on stream, that I quit smoking, and I definitely noticed a difference with my lungs. But despite the fact that I've been quit now for almost 2 years. It'll be 2 years in February that'll have been quit. So it's a long time, and my lungs still feel really raspy. They still feel like they're not healing and not recovering. And I wonder how much of that is just years of smoking, and how much of that might be attributable to COVID. And that's something else too, is when we talk about complicated, right? When we're trying to find, that's why there's such large ranges for those of you who find the ranges that Matt posted to be suspicious, right? We have these large ranges because we are looking for patterns of correlation, or patterns of comorbidity. Those are the two things that generally pathologists or phlebotomists are concerned with when we're talking about these kinds of things. Of course, I'm trying to pretend like I know a lot by using big words, but I don't. but anyways, that's why there's such ranges, is because it's complicated, right? There are some things that might be more or less attributable, and smoking would be one of those factors. Smoking doesn't cause cancer, ... but there is a strong correlation, and to ignore that correlation would be foolish, right? And so that there are going to be some relationships there too. I remember hearing at some point that some people who smoked a certain brand of cigarettes were less likely to get certain kinds of long COVID symptoms. But I don't remember if there were, I didn't follow up on that. I don't know if there were any other statements. I just remember reading a study on that at some point going, cigarettes are good for you, right? Like, wait, what? Oh, those rates were 2 years later. Oh, okay. Oh, that's what the ranges are. Never mind. No, let Matt explain the thing that they're explaining rather than letting me butcher it. Phlebotomist is a person that takes your blood. You mean epidemiologist? Yes. I do mean epidemiologist. I thought that phlebotomists worked with epidemiology, though. A phlebotomy is about a lot more than just drawing blood, right? Phlebotomy is the study of all of the fluids, the internal fluids of the body, I thought. It's a bigger category, but generally, if you go to school for phlebotomy, it's for drawing blood. And maybe that phlebotomy was a much larger thing, and that people who draw blood was a small subset of those people, and that it was a bigger thing. But maybe, I don't know. The cigarettes versus COVID infection rate that I saw was because your lungs aren't absorbing as much as a healthy person's, but the effect of COVIDs were worse if you did get sick. And that I remember that too, that people that smoked generally were more impacted. Right. That's yeah. And it's not good for you. That, long story short, smoking is not good for you, and you shouldn't do it. I'm so glad that I quit. They are so expensive. Just unbelievably expensive. I cannot believe. When I look back, I've always been a very poor person. I don't know how I ever could afford such an expensive habit. Oh, I meant to change the title here. $15 a pack for Pall Malls. And Pall Mall's a cheap brand for those of you who don't know. Because I was smoking American Spirits for a long time, and it's a premium brand cigarette that's considered much better for you. It's pure tobacco, or if you're only smoking the pure tobacco. There was some kind of lawsuit that I'd heard about with American Spirits. For some years, some of their cigarettes might not have been entirely only 100% tobacco, but for the most part, anyway. Never smoking or drinking. Good. Yeah, don't. I highly recommend sticking with that. Because I like alcohol, but you're not missing out, to be honest. Right? You're certainly not missing out on smoking. Just don't. There's zero pros. Zero pros. And that's not to say that tobacco is always necessarily bad. There are lots of healthy ways that you can use tobacco if you want to incorporate it into spiritual practices, or if you there are lots of very valuable ways that you can go about using tobacco. But smoking cigarettes that's not it. That's not the same thing. Apparently pure nicotine isn't harmful and maybe even has small benefits. But yeah, and that's but the usual delivery method overwhelms that with harmful stuff. That's right, exactly. There's I'm not going to say there's not some place for it, because I think absolutely there is, and for some people it's a very important part of their spiritual practices. For a lot of indigenous peoples, tobacco is is an important part of their connection with the earth and their tie to their food and their other kinds of relationships, and that's super awesome and valuable, right? But that's not smoking cigarettes. That's right. The two are not the same. Out of topic question, but what's your take on life spirituality, or do you follow any gurus? No, that's all right. I don't mind an out of context question. Welcome in. Out of topic. What's on life spirituality? I don't follow any gurus. I was about to start listing a few people that I think might not be terrible to listen to, but the problem is there's something wrong with everybody. I have a hard time having idols, because when I look up to my idols, then they turn out to be rapists or pedophiles or racists, or so I try not to like people. I'm let down less often when I don't look up to people. So and instead I listen to theory and I read people's theory, and when that theory pans out to be something that's beneficial, then I might adapt that. But so far as life spirit, I practice paganism, but I don't think that's the kind of thing that's for everyone. And I don't know that there is a spirituality that is for everyone. I think that there should... should is definitely not the way to go about that. So stop should, erase that word. Should is definitely not the right direction to go. I believe that, for me, anyways, that there was value and power to me finding out about my ancestry, to knowing about who my ancestors are, and to having some kind of understanding about the kinds of spiritual practices that they engaged in. Now, I don't get any books. I don't get any dogma. I don't get any kind of religion, because Christianity dedicated decades to wiping out my people's way of life, and they were very successful. So the Celtic pagan traditions that my ancestors did have all been lost in a very violent, severe way, and that too I find to be very powerful and valuable knowledge to have about my history and about the world and about the idea of cultural hegemony, which is the idea, the fascist idea, which brought about, which led to Christians believing that they had the right or the authority to eradicate whole people's way of life, to murder and to persecute those people, and to put them to the sword and burn them at the stake. Right? That I think that those are very powerful things that when I think back on my history, those things enrage me and they compel me to make the world a kind of place. Right? And I think that that's being informed by those kinds of things is good for me. Or I find those kinds of things identifying in a way that resonates with the kind of person I would like to be. Karoli Baba, where Steve Jobs, and yeah, I'm aware of Ram Dass and Raleigh. Shouldn't have idols. You'll glaze someone like Noam Chomsky. Perfect example. You'll glaze someone like Noam Chomsky. Thank you, Matt. Perfect example. And then find out they were friends with Epstein. We don't have any evidence that Chomsky has done anything devious yet, except for the fact that he was friends with a notorious and well-known pedophile, which is gross enough, right? Gross enough. Now, where there's smoke, there's probably fire. 2. So I'm certainly not going to cut Noam Chomsky any slack. At very least, was on purpose friends with somebody who was a known, already been formally, legally charged with and found guilty of being a pedophile. So he was on the Lolita Express. There's pictures. Okay, well, there you go. Right. Okay. But again, even more reason, a fortiori, more reason to not give a shit about Noam Chomsky, right? And that's a wonderful example. Care about truth first and foremost, so I'm not spiritual at all. And that I think is also perfectly rational. People who are entirely non-spiritual, I find to be more... This is a more rational, a more understandable emotionally way to understand the world than Christianity, for example. That we're just supposed to accept everything on blind faith. We're supposed to stop asking the questions. We're supposed to just be compliant. We're not supposed to decide anything for ourselves. Then why did you give us agency? Nothing about this makes any fucking sense, right? Like, well, I mean, it does if you're trying to coerce a whole bunch of people into being malleable and compliant. So, I mean, I guess, I guess. We Are All Orphans article will also be arguing that cultural appropriation, at least the way most people think of it, doesn't exist. Okay. Because what's called cultural appropriation isn't culture being taken, but value being extracted from it under unequal power relations. I completely agree with that statement, actually. I've always thought there was something wrong with the term cultural appropriation. Now, I think that there are certain things that are wrong, right? Blackface. Don't do that, right? But I also don't know that that's cultural appropriation. To me, that's more of like cultural mockery, because you're not taking the culture by dressing up and pretending in a really gross, self-centered, self-serving way. Right, that you're not taking, you're abusing, you're bastardizing, you're perverting the thing. Maybe. I bet you the culmination of World War III is the Epstein files. I mean, it really... Now, I would like to first and foremost be clear that I am not going to try to make the argument that Trump is going to start war with Venezuela as a distraction for the Epstein files. But it is a two birds with one stone kind of situation. Venezuela is imperialist United States doing imperialist United States stuff that we have been doing in the global south. This is par for the course. There's nothing new about what's going on in Venezuela right now. However, it is convenient timing with regard to the Epstein files, and it might be easily construed, right, by historians in 100 years, assuming that history exists in 100 years, that that what brought about World War III was the Epstein list and Trump trying to do everything that they can to not engage with this. Yeah, someone bigger than Trump is going to get implicated and everything will collapse. That's the real reason I believe that Trump is holding out. Has less to do with Trump being guilty, which is I believe that's obviously true. But I believe that what is in the Epstein files can be construed in a way that Trump could slime his way out of it. I believe that there is a much bigger fish on that hook. And by much bigger fish, I believe that Matt is completely right about this, that it's a fish so big, right? When we think about too big to fail as a concept, and the reason why we bailed out Ford and we bailed out all of these other failing companies when they do bad business practices, because they're too big to fail. If those businesses go under, they would buckle the whole economy, right? And I think that the fish that's on the hook is a fish so big that it would be bigger than Ford, right? Bigger than any of that. See, and this, I knew it would get taken out of context. You know, Venezuela is not just a distraction. I thought that I was really very clear about that. Venezuela is not just a distraction. It is business as usual in its. Let's also be clear about the United States has absolutely no right to do this. No legal right and no moral right. There is no moral justification. There is no legitimacy behind the actions of the United States. It's completely beyond contest, right? This is. I've got a lot to say, and I haven't streamed in a long time, so but yeah, laws are vibes. That's going back to COVID and mask off. There's lots of other stuff I want to get back to. I'm gonna get caught up on chat real fast in a second, but laws are vibes. That's so like the conversations that are happening right now around the country, around the globe, the conversations that are happening now around the globe is that world leaders are waking up to the realization that it was always a bad idea. It was always a bad idea for the UN to be vibes for human rights, the UN Declaration of Human Rights, vibes has always been nothing but fucking vibes. The whole time. It's not even just smoke and mirrors. There's no smoke and mirrors. There's been no pony show. It has always been vibes. And now the rest of the world is staring down a fascist dictator who is about to try and take Venezuela, Iceland. It's coming for Mexico next, Canada. I mean, you wanted to have a lawless world. What did you think was going to happen when the biggest fish on the block decided it wanted the whole pond? When the biggest fish on the block decided it wanted the whole pond? All right, let's get caught up on chat. Maybe a pedantic question, but when are wars legal? It's not like both sides sign a treaty to have a war. That's true. Well, that's the thing. The whole thing with UN and us having any kind of accords, international law has always been a joke. It's always been nothing but vibes anyway. So to be fair, the Dark Gray Otter, fair, right? But there are no, yeah, that's true. Think we can learn from bad people, and even if we learn from relatively good people, they might have learnt from terrible people. And it's better to learn from others' mistakes than to make your own mistakes. I 100% agree with that too. That's actually really very good. And that's why I said, I don't look up to idols, but I do like to read. I like to read about what other people have experienced. I don't think that Nietzsche has any answers that are going to help me in my everyday life, but I can look at how Nietzsche examined the problems that Nietzsche examined, and to see how Nietzsche worked out those problems. Should I aspire to be like Nietzsche? No. He was a very disliked person. He was sour and didn't have a whole lot of friends. His wife didn't like him, right? Died of a venereal disease. There's lots of reasons to not want to aspire to be like Nietzsche. That mustache was just outrageous. Come on now. But Nietzsche's got some good ideas, and reading how Nietzsche thought through some of their ideas has helped me understand how maybe I should be reflective about myself and how I think about the world. Because Moko, I wanted to go back up to this one for Kayamatara's. We Are All Orphans article will also be arguing. I wanted to give context when I read the next part of it, Kayamatara. We Are All Orphans article will also be arguing that cultural appropriation, at least in the way most people think of it, doesn't exist because it's called cultural appropriation. Because what's called cultural appropriation isn't cultural being taken, but value being extracted from it under unequal relations. So I already read that. I wanted to reread that to set the context for the following, because Emeko Maori tribal facial tattoos is not a detachable cultural object to appropriate, but a living relational practice grounded in wakapapa and kakanga. When these conditions isn't appropriation, but the continuation of extractive power that treats Maori culture as a resource rather than us Maori as authorities over it. Yes, right. You are robbed of the opportunity to define yourselves, to determine yourselves in a defining way. It's taken from you, and that's what's being taken, is not the culture, and that's I think that your reframing of this idea of cultural appropriation really tracks, and I think is a really, really good idea. Because one of the things that I was going to talk about, and this might be a hot take, right? White people with dreadlocks cannot be cultural appropriation. I think in most cases that kind of thing cannot be culturally appropriated, because people all around the world, all throughout all of human history, people of all shades have historically dreaded their hair and have historically braided their hair, have historically had a whole bunch of different kinds of hair traditions. And most of cultures that have had very important hair traditions, those hair traditions have changed quite significantly over time, of their own time, right? So it's not like anybody gets a thing and nobody else can get the thing. That's not how things work in a world of, we're all human and we all have hair, so that's my hot take. Box braids are well, see, and there are niche styles. Box braids are problematic. Yeah, okay. That there are niche styles that I guess do fit the criteria, and there are it's like a samurai hairstyle. There are distinct samurai hairstyles that if I just started going around with those hairstyles with no thought or reference or care, I just thought it looked cool, right? That's because that's a very specific niche kind of thing. Not just you decided to put some braids in your hair. You just decided to not wash your hair for a while, right? Dreads were just a thing. World Economics says you will own nothing and you will be happy. Yeah, that's true. How you think people liberate or come out of that situation arises. I think you were talking about war. I think that's probably when we were talking about still in the conversation of war. It's not legal. It's theater. It's a fake mechanism of accountability so that people don't take up arms against the oppressor. Yes, and that's all it's ever been. It's just this weak vibes thing, right? And that's what going back to what I was going to say, tie this all back into COVID, right? I think that COVID really helped illustrate the ways in which we are a global community. We are all susceptible to the same thing. Like it was humbling in a way where rich and powerful nations couldn't pretend that they were better than third world countries, right? There was this realization that we're all actually in the same boat together. And I just wish that sentiment had sedimented. I wish that sentiment had sedimented into the ethos of our consciousness about how we are going to go forward. Because it really didn't take much for everybody to just snap right back to the same old regimen. Back to work. Okay, sweaty. Back to the office, right? And this tying back into time. Right? We had the time where we were with people in alienated from each other, from society. We were with whoever you lived with, right? Where was I going with that? Oh, you had to come to understand what was real. What was actually going to help you. What was actually going to help you is not the government, is not the CDC, it's not the state. No one's coming to help you. Your neighbors are the reason why you have toilet paper now. Your neighbors are the reason why you have water to drink, right? And there was a shift in how we thought about the world, but yeah, for the time, right? We had started to deprogram because we were alienated from culture and society in a very extreme way, and we had to depend on each other and small communities, right? And in that time, people began to deprogram. But I think that it's scary, right? And this is something we've talked about over and over again. Again, this is even on the outline, I think, somewhere that we were just we'll get back to on Friday. That people are scared of responsibility. People, when given the opportunity to pick up the reins of responsibility over determining their own lives, most people are just happy to hand those reins right over to somebody else. And I think that when culture snapped back and was like, okay, everybody get back to work, everybody get back to normal, there were so many people who just wanted to not have to, be responsible for determining themselves. Yep, Titanic passengers were in the same boat. Yeah, absolutely. Someone with a crazy dark tan, box braids, and I don't know what that is. Alve? It's a walking caricature. Well, and see, that's right, and that's I love that attitude. That's one of my favorite attitudes, is the a resistance to the idea of normal. Really, because it's normal is a fantasy. It's a myth made up by capitalism to make you feel bad. That's what normal is. Right? It was invented first probably by the Romans, I think. We could probably trace it back, if we were going to trace it back to if we were going to find somebody to blame, we might be able to go earlier than the Romans, but that's certainly the first group that systematized a way to be and then systematically punished people who were not that way, right? And established an order of, well, okay, there are parameters. Well, you're a woman. You can't do that. Here's a sword, and I'm going to point this in your face until you accept that this is the truth and you need to listen to me, right? And that's how we got here. We're still doing that. We never stopped doing that. We just called it a whole bunch of different things. We make people feel bad because their bodies are too hairy. We make people feel bad because their bodies are too strong. We make people feel bad because all kinds of reasons, every reason, any reason. Because when people feel bad, they spend more money, and they're less likely to look for freedom. Ave is a African American vernacular English. I gotcha. Speaking, I gotcha. The Southern accent is a cheap ripoff of Ave. I gotcha. It's more like than capitalism. It's hierarchical power structures. Yes, yes. It is more than just capitalism. That's true. Right, because we cannot ignore the patriarchy. Right, we cannot ignore the patriarchy. We cannot ignore all the other kinds of unjust hierarchies. Good way to avoid dogma and psychophancy is to be fascinated by everything, whether you agree or disagree, or whether it's good or bad. An example I'm fascinated with, Lenin's analysis, while disliking his betrayal of anarchists and other socialists. Agreed. It almost allows me to be able to hold him to account better than I would if I just hated him. Yes, no, absolutely. And this is something that I am actually struggling with. It's funny, I made a note. Let me pull this note up. Where did I leave that note? All right, well, I'll pull it up later. But I wrote a post-it note to myself quite a while ago. And the note was about Epstein, actually, specifically. What the note to myself was that there are some ideas so disgusting that I just don't want to think about them, right? That I do sometimes go out of my way to avoid thinking about certain kinds of things. The fact that my country is run by a ring of pedophiles, right? That is a truth which has become demonstrably clear to me. And I am increasingly uncomfortable with. And so I even though I know that this is something that I need to focus on so that we can change this and to make the world different, it's something that's hard for me to want to think about because it's fucking disgusting. And it makes me feel disgusting to think about it, right? To be engaged with those ideas and those... I don't want to, right? But the reality is that what I want doesn't matter. That's the reality. It's a material condition, and me ignoring it because I don't want it to be true doesn't make it not true. It makes me blind. It makes me incapable of doing stuff with regard to that. It works in defense of those evil, vile, reprehensible people because what they are doing is stuff that I don't want to believe is true, right? When it comes to Stephen Miller, the kinds of things that Stephen Miller just says out loud, it makes my skin crawl. It makes me want to not live in this world with people who are like that, right? It has a very, very real effect on me to hear such horrible words being said as though it's just fucking normal. On TV, right? On purpose, not caught in a back room or in a locker room, right? Just out in the open on purpose, saying such vile, racist, reprehensible things, right? And I don't want those things to be true. What I want doesn't matter. It doesn't make it go away. And so the point is that you're absolutely right. By just hating or just dismissing, right? We are doing ourselves a disservice. It's better to have well, I wouldn't say fascination, but some kind of capability for being able to sift through stuff that you need to sift through, whether or not you would like to, right? That's the TLDR. But yeah, thank you, Kaya Matara, for getting me on that long tangent. So Trump is fascinating. I mean, in a number of words, in a number of ways, Trump is actually fascinating. Yeah, it's like a train wreck. It's really, yeah, he is literally groomed for now his entire life. Yep. Stephen Miller also groomed his entire life for this. Mentors were the most powerful fascists in America behind the curtains, right? I have a super clip of evil things Stephen Miller said. I mean, it's easy to catch him saying just outright evil stuff. One form of cultural appropriation, oh good, I like to think about is food. It's amazing that so many cultures came up with their own versions or of dumplings, pancakes, breads, or soups, and then some culture had something unique, it was spread around. It's a very warm thought that sharing food with each other is a deep human instinct. Yes. Yes. I absolutely, it is, right. That's what we want to do. Over Christmas, I was having a conversation with somebody. No, maybe it was Thanksgiving. Yeah, it was Thanksgiving now that I think about it. Where somebody was talking about um, the feeling that you get when you make something and you get to see somebody else enjoy it, right? When they take their first bite, when you make something, you put a lot of care and work and effort into it, and you get this sense of satisfaction. And I was like, that is what socialism is. That's socialism is when you feel the rewards of contributing things to society. Right? When you get to do things and other people in society get to benefit, and you are excited because you have been benefited by these people, and you just want to make them happy. You just want to make them happy, right? And so you do your thing and you make them happy, right? Yes! It's just like, half the table was like, yeah, socialism. The other half was like, I don't know. But yeah, so food, I think absolutely is one of those kinds of things that we want to share it. We yearn, right? When people have a good singing voice and they have creative things that they want to put into song, they don't want to just sing for the trees, right? When they sing those things, they want other people to enjoy that. That's part of it. There's a natural human yearning to share with others what we have. And it's wild that people are always hell-bent on assuming the worst about humanity, that we are necessarily greedy, self-interested, and selfish individuals, and that's just not true. It's look at humans and what they do. They want to share their food. Right? When they come up with different practices, different ways, look what I can do with bread. Do this. Look at this cool thing. It's 3 ingredients. I can show you how to do this, right? And that of course, food has been culturally shared so much throughout history. Good. Fascinated doesn't mean agreeing. Absolutely. Think about how much you learned as a child. You have, where'd it go? You are full of wonder in that way, not because you agree with anything happening around you, but because you are noticing it. Yes, wonder is my favorite way to express what we do in philosophy. What philosophy is wonder put to words, right? When we, and this is the colloquial we, right? When humans experience something in the world, that it's, we wonder. The wondering is what makes us curious to have an explanation, right? In wonder has different kinds of consequences. Wonder is what gave us religion in the first place, right? That we saw death and we saw storms and earthquakes, and we wondered about what these things could mean. And so we invented narratives to help give us some kind of guidance, so that when our children ask, why is the earthquake quaking, right? We have so even though we don't have good answers, we don't have no answers, right? That there's, we want to have some kind of, well, it's not always about having the answer necessarily, too. So that's one thing that we might think about too narrowly, right? Because wonder isn't necessarily associated with wondering about how it came to be or why it is that way. Not necessarily. You might just be looking at the beautiful sunset in wonder, right? And appreciating it and taking it in and trying to capture as much as you possibly can might be a kind of wonder as well. Which is also very healthy and I think for humans kind of a necessary thing. The earliest Stephen Miller clip I have is him in his university protesting that they should be able to litter. I do remember hearing about that. Fucking Stephen Miller, what a ghoul. I've also I've heard that people who went to school with Stephen Miller all report that he was just a weird, creepy, uncomfortable, awkward, gross person to be around. Was always just really, really, really not fun to be around. Nobody really liked him. Culture back to the commons, right? I mean that's what I want is culture back to the commons. Food's a mechanism. Food's a mechanism to get there. That's a whole ass other conversation that I want to have. Not today. I'm already getting really kind of tired. Fascinating describes a state of attention. I like that. Not a position of assent. In other words, not a position of assent. Yeah. Fascinating describes a state of attention. Yes, and I think that there is right, and there's right. Fascination is kind of the right word. Because right, it's like people get fascinated with serial killers, not because they want become or emulate, but because there's a morbid curiosity, right, that is associated with that kind of fascination. Are we watching the video I posted on Friday? Yes, that is my plan, Jane, is to watch the video that you posted on Friday. And I the other thing that's the reason why it's going to tie in perfectly is the when I was traveling, I read this whole book. It's not a very big book, so it's not super impressive that I read it in a single plane ride, but I did read the whole book in a single plane ride, and it's fantastic. It is a really good work, and I want to talk about some of the stuff that I read in this work. And it's going to tie in really, really well with the video that Jane posted in the Discord. So feel free to go ahead and check out that video. We're going to watch it on Friday. And that's definitely going to be the plan. Was our first try at understanding. Religion was our first try at understanding the world. And that's one of the things that I have to try to remember. I have to kind of be patient with people that are drawn to religion. It's really hard. It's really hard because you should be able to think for yourself, Sweaty. I mean, that's really what it boils down to. Is in today's day and age, it's really hard for me to understand why anybody. It's not. I mean, people like community. In fact, a lot of people that I know go to church. I know go to church for community primarily. Like, that's the reason. They don't really care about the practice. They're not really concerned about whether they're going to be saved. And that's that kind of belief, right? It's that difference in a hypothetical belief that maybe climate change is real, and I'm not going to argue with the science, as opposed to, I know that this is a real thing and I need to change my life. I need to live my life in a certain way because, right? Those are two different kinds of belief. And I believe that there are lots of Christians who are of this kind of belief. That they're like, well, hypothetically, whatever, cool. Because if they believed, they would be out there in the streets, feeding homeless and helping people find shelter. And to be fair, lots of Christians do that. But if you've been in communities of people that do that, there's lots of non-Christians who are there too. Every time, all the time, unless it's something that's specifically run by a religious organization. And then those people in the religious organization don't let anybody else play, right? You have to play by their rules or don't get to play at all, right? Also, evangelizing, right? Don't forget that if we're going to feed the poor, we also have to, give them a Gideon's Bible or whatever else. Right. Don't forget the evangelizing. That's maybe we'll have a tangent about how awful Mother Teresa is. About Mother Teresa here on the stream before too. So we'll bash her some other time. Let that evil bitch roll over her in her grave. But I'm tired and my throat is killing me. I got an hour and a half out of it, which is pretty good. By Friday, I'm expecting that I'll be better. Hopefully, fingers crossed. And I'll be more caught up on my school stuff. So, yeah, I'm trying to get some rest. I will play some video games, I imagine. I'm going to play some 7 days, but I need to be finding a raid target while I'm doing this. Thank you all so much for being here. Again, I really wanted to just hang out with my friends today, and then you guys all showed up. So thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being my friends. I really appreciate it because I been sick and I didn't feel well, and I just wanted to hang out with my friends. So here we go. Let's see if we can get the raid going. Huzzah! Yep. Wait. Yep, the raid is going on. We are gonna go. I already gone into Peacefire. I'll raid Vitingale next time. Thank you for letting me know, Street Cat Love. I appreciate you helping me trying to help me find a raid target. But we'll get Vitingale next time. They are also a comrade. But we're gonna go check out Peacefire now. I'm gonna rest up. I hope all of you lovelies also rest up. Stay well. Take care of yourselves. Stay revolutionary. And until the next time I see you, be excellent to each other. I'm having a hard time clicking over.
I'm here for you. I'm here for you right now because I know I was feeling it and was thinking to myself, being like, I don't know, I don't want to, I'm just going to get real depressed if I cancel stream and I just, sit here thinking that everything is doom. And, on a W Wednesday, we get ourselves out of it. We remind each other there are W's and we inspire each other to keep on fighting. And so, that being said, waxing philosophical, hold on, let me go full screen here just to welcome you in. Thank you for the raid. I hope your stream went well. Twitch isn't a competition, it's a community, and I want to see all of us grow. So if you're not following Waxing Philosophical, that being said, Waxing Philosophical, I need need to come in and check out your streams a little more. I don't know if it's a timing issue. I just haven't had a chance. And so know this, if I'm not streaming and you are, I will definitely pop in. I see the lovely people in your community, Matt United, Street Cat Love. It seems like a very cozy place to be. Sick but recovering. Can we send all the positive love, the healing power of community to Waxing Philosophical, and hope you feel a lot better. Waxing Philosophical, thank you for raiding in. Welcome in, raiders. Peace fire here. You can call me PFN, Heb, it doesn't matter. Just know that we're going to talk about things that shouldn't be considered radical that we are told we are radicals for considering. Like the fact that housing should be a human right, that people should have access to clean water and free food and good education and free health care, that we want an end to all wars, that there is no war justified. And, here we are. Here we are being called radicals, but we don't give a fuck. We raise both our middle fingers up and we inspire each other to keep fighting another day. And so that is kind of where we are at. We cozy. Thank you. No worries. I know you're a busy comrade. You'll catch me when you catch me. Know that I will catch you. Know that I will be there. Always try to. I had a wonderful time yesterday hanging out with the noisy immigrant. I was lurking away. I was worried. It was DEFCON 1 over at Domino's Pizza, which is always a sign that, the Pentagon is going to do something. So had a great time there, and I need to spend more time everywhere, and so another space I will definitely be out more. I see Maddie United is in here, and that being said, tomorrow we're gonna have stream a little early at 2 p.m. Eastern tomorrow. I did get in touch with Khaled, who is in Gaza right now. We're not getting a lot of news out of Gaza. And we definitely, obviously with the humanitarian organizations being blocked, with Doctors Without Borders being told they need to leave, obviously the ceasefire, which we know is fake, is not delivering on the promises that were made. And since we're not getting enough reporting out of Palestine with everything that's going on, I'm going to try to do my best to start reaching out every now and then to Palestinians who are there to get updates to see how we can help, because a lot of people donate money to a lot of organizations who are going to be blocked from entering. And so the best way to help is to find people in Palestine. How do they get money there? If we can guarantee that the money is getting in their hands and it's helping them. Khaled was a computer programmer. There are no jobs, supporting a family of 9. And so we're going to hear all about that tomorrow at 2 p.m. Eastern. If you can join us, that would be wonderful. And Maddie United, we'll get in touch. I want it to be something where every other week or so we reach out, because I'm not going to trust that the media is going to keep us informed. The media is going to be like, okay, well, we've been talking about Palestine for a while, not doing anything about it, and there's a ceasefire, so no need. It's like, okay, well, while that's happening, Israel is still attacking Syria, taking parts of Syria. They're still attacking Lebanon. They're still, even yesterday, they went after a university in the West Bank where people were watching, because they were going to watch The Voice of Hind Reshab, and went in and started firing at the university campus students. And I was like, what? That never happens at the university in the West Bank. How are you sitting there and pretending like this is okay, this is normal? How is this not headline news? And it's like, well, with all the news happening, we don't have time for that. People know, And I'm like, no. We need to make time. We need to make time. I'm concerned because all of the military checkpoints are empty right now in the West Bank. I know a lot of Palestinians, if you need to talk to people. Well, we'll get in touch, Maddie United. I'll try to make it something where, maybe we have a day where we reach out to people from the location, whether it's in Palestine, whether it's in Sudan, so many crises right now where we trust media and their reporting, but we really don't trust media and its reporting because we know that they have their narratives, that they continue to lie, that they spread misinformation. And the best way to rehumanize what the mainstream media has dehumanized is by making those connections and reaching out and talking to people and breaking down the barriers that they put up so that you realize that Khaled is no different than anyone else here. Right? And so we have a lot of work to do. And tomorrow at 2 p.m., we'll be talking to Khaled. Hopefully it works out this time. I was supposed to do it yesterday, but then there were a lot of tech issues. So hopefully the internet, the phones, everything will work to make it happen, because it ended up canceling yesterday's stream because that was my plan. And then ultimately it just didn't work out.